Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a PS4 in for a customer. She says it's been dropped and now she gets no image from the console. So I've taken a look at the HDMI port under the microscope and it's obviously quite damaged. You've seen me do the hot drop method on most consoles, so I'm going to do things a little bit differently on this one. I'm going to try and remove the port and actually solder that port by hand. I'll get this one torn down, see what we can do. So we got this back down to board level. What I'll do, I'll get under the scope. I'll show you what's going on with this port. I can see, and you might be able to see, it's actually quite badly damaged. So that definitely needs changing, and fingers crossed that's all that's wrong with this console. But let's take a look under the scope, see what we can do. Now a quick word from our sponsor, PCBWay. PCBWay are your one-stop shop for all things PCB design and assembly, offering services ranging from PCB design and assembly made to your own custom spec to CNC machining, 3D printing and everything in between. Offering turnarounds in as little as 24 hours with one-on-one support throughout your design and assembly process makes PCBWay your #1 stop for all of your PCB needs. Head over to PCBWay.com, pop your needs into the instant quote, get your quote, use your $5 coupon and get your design underway today. For even more fun, hit the Shared Projects tab, take a look at what other people just like you have had designed and assembled by PCBWay. Take your pick from these projects. There's more than a few to keep the techie amused. For more information, visit the link in the description below. As you can see, that port is quite badly mangled, so we're going to have to get that off and clean up the area, put the new port in. To take this off, I'm going to do it from above. So you will see people using low melt solder to lower the temperature to take these ports off. I worry about that purely because of the fact that low melt obviously does what it says on the tin and melts at a lower temperature than normal solder would do. Therefore, I leave the solder as it is and just take my time taking it off. I know when everything's wetted, then the port is ready to come, rather than potentially risking pulling a pad. That was a nice clean extraction, but what we need to do is clear out these ground holes, these 4 ground holes, wick off these pads here, lay down some fresh solder once we've got the new port in position. This is why I prefer the hot drop method for these, because I could have done that over the edge of the desk and just dropped the new port straight on and tidied up the ports afterwards, but it's always nice to do things a little bit differently. So we're just going to put some flux on here, help the wick glide across. Grab ourselves some wick. Big tip, use a big tip, you get more heat transfer through the area that you're in. Just give that a minute to heat up. This won't always go very nicely, but we've got tricks for that. Clean off these pads. We'll see how we get on. I need to clean up that area and make sure I can see what I'm working on. I'm not comfortable with that solder sucker. It's got exactly what you want. It's got a lot of suck behind it. Misses. So what I'm going to do is come back with my iron and just take my time, clear out these ground holes. What you can do is bring your hot air back in and use that in conjunction with the iron. Right, you guys didn't actually have the displeasure of seeing that if my editor's done his job right, because these ground holes gave me absolute stinking hell. The conformal around the ground holes has started to peel back, but as you can see, it doesn't bear any relevance, so we're not worried about that. So the next thing that we need to do is drop in a port. Just give this a test fit. That lines up perfectly. So what we're going to do is get a couple of these legs tacked down to hold this in place. very small amount of flux on that port. Going to come back over to our underside of the board. Flux, loads of flux. We'll heat up that pin and just absolutely send that solder home. Give this a clean up whilst we're here, and there's some heat in the board. Get in there with our brush. Get that side of the board nice and clean. And now we need to get some solder on each of these legs. Iron off, try and deal with our bridges. We've got multiple ways we can deal with bridges. We can wick them out, or we can take our time, and it is always more satisfying when you can solder them out. In this case, I'm going to switch irons. I've got a BCM 2 tip on my iron now, which has a small indentation in the end. I believe that's got them all. So clean up time, see what we're working with. And there we go. We have obviously got to deal with those ground holes, but we'll do the nudge test. Solid, 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 solid. They are all perfectly solid. And now we need to return our attention to these ground holes. What I'm going to do, I'm going to set my hot air at 230 and 99% airflow. I'm going to take my iron again. We're going to help this solder flow with some flux, and we're just going to hold the iron and the hot air. Helps if your iron's turned on. That still hasn't pushed through, so I'm going to give it a helping hand from the top side. There we go. Right, that port, although not ideal, is secure, but we'll clean it up and see what we're working with. So we just spent 20 minutes arguing with a port that we never should have argued with if we'd stuck to the method that we're used to and done the hot drop method. It's for me personally, I find it a lot easier to deal with, especially where those ground holes are concerned. This PS4 board takes a whole load of heat. Anyway, we're at a point where we need to test the machine. So first thing we want to do is give that some lovely MX4. Put that board back into place. Good. And now we're at a point where we can test this machine. So let's turn it on. Wait for that to go to a white light. It's gone to a white light. And there we go. See if we can get that console to boot up as it should. Okay, so we're stuck in safe mode, which means I'm going to have to reinstall the software on this PlayStation 4. So I'll leave this video here for now, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.